A beggar falls at Melania Trump's feet. What she does next is truly inspirational. It was an unusually brisk morning in New York City. The streets buzzed with the rhythm of the waking metropolis, honking taxis, hurried footsteps, and the occasional street vendor calling out to early commuters. Wrapped in a sleek black coat, Melania Trump walked with quiet grace along Fifth Avenue, her eyes scanning the bustling crowd. She enjoyed these rare solo walks, finding solace in observing the city she loved. As she passed the grand iron gates of St. Patrick's Cathedral, something caught her attention. A man, elderly and disheveled, staggered toward her. His clothes were tattered, his face weathered by hardship, and his hands trembled from the cold. In an instant, he tripped over the curb, falling directly at her feet. Gasps echoed from passers-by as time seemed to freeze. The man struggled to rise, clearly embarrassed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you." Without hesitation, Melania knelt beside him, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "There's no need to apologize," she said softly, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "Are you hurt?" The man shook his head, his eyes brimming with tears. "I'm just tired. Hungry. I haven't eaten in days." Melania's heart clenched. This was no mere encounter. It was a poignant reminder of how life could change in an instant, of how even the strongest could find themselves in the most vulnerable situations. She glanced at the curious crowd forming around them but paid them no mind. Right now, her focus was on this man. "What's your name?" she asked. "Arthur," he replied, his voice breaking. "I used to be a teacher, before everything fell apart." Melania helped him to his feet, steadying him. "Come with me, Arthur. Let's get you some food and somewhere warm to rest." The crowd watched in awe as Melania guided Arthur toward a nearby cafe. Paparazzi lurked in the distance, snapping photos, but she ignored them. For her, this was a moment of human connection, far more important than any headline or image. Inside the cafe, the warm air embraced them as Melania guided Arthur to a booth by the window. She signaled to a server, who quickly brought over 2 cups of steaming coffee. Arthur wrapped his trembling hands around the mug, savoring the warmth. For the first time in what felt like forever, he allowed himself to relax. "Order anything you want," Melania said, her tone gentle but firm. "It's on me." Arthur hesitated. "I couldn't. It wouldn't be right." "You can," she insisted, her eyes locking with his. "Everyone deserves kindness, Arthur." With a grateful nod, he scanned the menu and picked a simple meal, a sandwich and a bowl of soup. As he ate, Melania listened intently as Arthur recounted his story. He had once been a respected history teacher, known for his passion for education and his unwavering dedication to his students. But life had taken an unexpected turn when his wife fell ill, and mounting medical bills forced him to leave his job. After her passing, grief consumed him, and without a stable income or family to lean on, he found himself on the streets. "I've been out here for nearly 2 years, Arthur said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Some days it feels like the world has forgotten I exist." Melania reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "You're not forgotten, Arthur. Not by me. And certainly not by the world." Her words struck a chord deep within him. Tears welled up in his eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt seen. Truly seen. As they talked, Melania began forming a plan in her mind. This wasn't going to be a one-time gesture. She wanted to help Arthur rebuild his life, not just for a day but for the long term. "Arthur," she said, "if you're willing, I'd like to help you get back on your feet. I know some people who can provide temporary housing and connect you with the resources you need." Arthur's eyes widened in disbelief. "You'd do that for me?" "Of course," she smiled. "No one should have to face this world alone." True to her word, Melania made several calls that afternoon. Within hours, arrangements were made for Arthur to stay at a transitional housing facility known for helping individuals reintegrate into society. The facility provided shelter, counseling, and job training programs to help people get back on their feet. Melania personally accompanied Arthur to the facility. As they arrived, the staff welcomed him with open arms, assuring him that he was in good hands. One of the counselors, a warm-hearted woman named Maria, introduced herself. "Arthur, we're going to take great care of you," she said with a reassuring smile. "You're not alone in this." Arthur glanced at Melania, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Melania replied. "Just promise me one thing: when you're back on your feet, pay it forward. Help someone else who needs it." "I will," Arthur vowed. "I promise." In the weeks that followed, Arthur began to transform. With a warm bed to sleep in and regular meals, his health improved dramatically. He attended counseling sessions, addressing the grief and trauma that had weighed him down for so long. Slowly but surely, the spark that had once defined him as a teacher returned. Melania stayed in touch, visiting him often to check on his progress. She brought him books on history, encouraging him to reconnect with his passion. They would sit for hours discussing historical events and sharing their favorite stories. One day, during one of their conversations, Arthur mentioned how much he missed teaching. "You could teach again," Melania suggested. Arthur shook his head. "Who would hire an old man like me? Anyone would be lucky to have a teacher like you," she said. "And I know just the person to help you find the right opportunity." True to her word, Melania contacted a friend who ran a community learning center that offered free classes to adults and children. After hearing Arthur's story, the director was eager to meet him. The interview was brief but powerful. Within minutes, the director knew Arthur was exactly what the center needed. He offered him a position teaching American history and helping adults prepare for their high school equivalency exams. When Melania visited the center a week later, she found Arthur in front of a group of eager students, his eyes alight with passion as he explained the significance of the Declaration of Independence. The man who had once felt forgotten was now at the heart of a vibrant community, inspiring others with his knowledge and kindness. After the class, Arthur walked over to Melania, a smile stretching across his face. "You were right," he said. "I didn't think it was possible, but I feel alive again." Melania returned the smile. "I always knew you had it in you." Arthur's story soon became a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. The local news picked up the story, framing it as a testament to the power of kindness and second chances. The article quickly went viral, drawing attention from media outlets across the country. Reporters reached out to Melania, asking her for a statement. She kept it simple: "It's not about me. It's about recognizing the humanity in every person we meet and offering a helping hand when we can." The story resonated deeply with people everywhere. Donations poured into the Community Learning Center, allowing it to expand its programs and help even more people in need. Letters from around the world flooded in, people sharing their own experiences of kindness and how they were inspired to do more for others. Months later, Melania received a letter from Arthur. It was written in neat cursive, each word carefully chosen. "Dear Melania, thank you for believing in me when I had stopped believing in myself. You gave me the gift of hope, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Teaching again has given me a new purpose, and I'm proud to say that many of my students have gone on to pass their exams and pursue their dreams. You were right. Kindness has a ripple effect. I've seen it with my own eyes. And I promise to keep that ripple going for as long as I can. With deepest gratitude, Arthur." Tears filled Melania's eyes as she read the letter. Arthur's journey was a reminder of the profound impact one act of kindness could have, not just on one life, but on many. And in her heart, she knew that this was only the beginning. There were countless others like Arthur, people waiting for a little spark of hope to reignite their lives. And as long as she had the chance, Melania vowed to continue spreading that hope, one act of kindness at a time. Over the next several months, Arthur's life continued to blossom. His classes at the Community Learning Center became some of the most popular in the program. Students of all ages, from teenagers struggling to pass their exams to adults yearning for a second chance at education, flocked to his lessons. His passion for history was infectious, and his teaching style made even the most complex events feel alive and relevant. Melania often visited the center quietly, sitting at the back of the classroom as Arthur taught. She watched with a deep sense of fulfillment as the once fragile man she had met on the street thrived in his new role. There was a light in his eyes now, a spark of confidence that hadn't been there before. One evening, as the class wrapped up and students lingered to thank Arthur for another inspiring lesson, he spotted Melania and waved her over. "You've been my most loyal student," he teased, a playful grin on his face. "I could listen to you teach all day," Melania replied. "You have a gift, Arthur." He looked around at the students packing up their things, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "These students have given me more than I could ever give them. Every day, they remind me that it's never too late to start again." Melania nodded, understanding the depth of his words. "And you've reminded all of us that resilience and hope can change lives. Yours is a story people need to hear." Arthur laughed softly. "A story about an old man who got a second chance? I doubt anyone would be interested in that." "I think you'd be surprised," Melania said with a knowing smile. "Let me make a few calls." Within weeks, Arthur found himself standing in front of a packed auditorium at a charity gala organized by Melania and her foundation. The event's theme was Stories of Hope, and Arthur was the keynote speaker. It was a surreal experience, standing in front of hundreds of people, all eager to hear his story. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the microphone, but when he began to speak, his voice was steady. "I was once a man who had lost everything," he began. "My wife, my job, my sense of purpose. I felt invisible, forgotten by the world. I thought my story had ended on a cold street corner." He paused, his eyes scanning the audience. "But then someone saw me, not as a problem to be ignored, but as a person worth helping. That moment changed everything." He recounted his journey, from the depths of despair to the hope and purpose he had found at the Learning Center. He spoke of the power of kindness, of how one small gesture could ripple outward and transform countless lives. As he finished, the room erupted into applause. People rose to their feet, their claps echoing through the grand hall. Arthur stood in awe, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Melania joined him on stage, taking his hand. "You see, Arthur? People care. Your story matters." The moment was captured by photographers, and within hours, it was shared across social media and news outlets. Arthur's story went viral once again, this time reaching an even wider audience. Donations to the Community Learning Center surged, allowing it to expand its programs and hire more teachers. Messages poured in from people around the world who had been inspired by his journey. Arthur's life became a whirlwind of activity. He was invited to speak at schools, conferences, and community events. His message was simple but powerful: never underestimate the impact of kindness. Never give up, no matter how dark life may seem. Despite his growing popularity, Arthur remained humble. He continued teaching at the Learning Center, mentoring students and encouraging them to pursue their dreams. Each day was a reminder of how far he had come and how much further he could go. Melania, too, found herself deeply changed by the experience. While she had always believed in the importance of helping others, Arthur's story reinforced her commitment to making a difference. She expanded her foundation's outreach programs, focusing on providing resources and support to those facing hardship. One afternoon, as Melania and Arthur sat on a bench outside the Learning Center, enjoying the warm spring sun, Arthur turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," he said, "what if we start a scholarship program for some of the students here? There are so many talented young people who just need a little push to reach their potential." Melania's eyes lit up. "That's a brilliant idea. We'll call it the Second Chance Scholarships." The scholarship program was launched a few months later, offering financial aid and mentorship to students from underserved communities. The response was overwhelming. Applications flooded in, each one a testament to the resilience and determination of young people striving for a better future. The first group of scholarship recipients included a diverse array of students, aspiring doctors, artists, teachers, and entrepreneurs. Arthur personally mentored several of them, sharing his wisdom and guiding them through the challenges they faced. Years passed, and the Second Chance Scholarship grew into one of the most successful initiatives of Melania's foundation. Many of the program's alumni went on to achieve incredible things. Some started businesses, others became leaders in their communities. And through it all, they carried with them the lesson that had changed Arthur's life: kindness and hope could move mountains. Arthur eventually retired from teaching, but he remained an active part of the Learning Center, attending events and cheering on his former students. His legacy was cemented not just in the lives he had touched, but in the movement of kindness and second chances that he had helped create. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Melania and Arthur stood outside the Learning Center, watching a group of students laughing and chatting on the steps. "You know," Arthur said, his voice filled with gratitude, "if you hadn't stopped that day, none of this would have happened." Melania smiled, her eyes twinkling. "I think we both know it was meant to happen. Sometimes, the universe puts people in our path for a reason." Arthur nodded, his heart full. "Thank you, Melania. For everything. You've done the hard work, Arthur," she replied. "I just gave you a little nudge." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the world move around them. A world that, thanks to a simple act of kindness, felt just a little brighter. The following weeks brought a deeper sense of purpose to both Arthur and Melania. The scholarship program began to gain momentum beyond anything they had imagined. The Second Chance Scholarship wasn't just another charity initiative, it became a movement of compassion and resilience. Stories of the program's success started to spread like wildfire across media outlets, inspiring thousands of people across the country to take action in their own communities. Arthur was flooded with letters and messages from strangers. Former teachers, struggling single parents, veterans, and even young students poured out their hearts, sharing how Arthur's story had given them hope. Many of them spoke about how they had felt invisible too, much like Arthur had, and how his story reminded them they were worth fighting for. One day, as Arthur was reading through some of the letters at the Learning Center, a particular message caught his eye. It was written on simple notebook paper, the handwriting slightly messy but sincere. "Dear Mr. Arthur, my name is Jake. I'm 17 years old, and I dropped out of school last year because my family couldn't afford to keep me there. I've been working at a diner to help my mom and little sister, but every day, I feel like I'm letting them down. I heard your story and couldn't stop crying because it felt like you were talking about me. If there's any way I could be a part of your program, I'd do anything. I just want a chance to make my mom proud." Arthur stared at the letter, his heart clenching with emotion. Without hesitation, he called Melania. "We have to meet this boy," Arthur said. "He reminds me so much of myself at that age." Melania agreed, and within days, they tracked down Jake at the diner where he worked. When they walked into the small, cozy restaurant, Jake was wiping down tables. He looked up, his eyes widening in disbelief as he recognized them. "Mr. Arthur?" Jake asked, his voice barely audible. Arthur smiled warmly. "It's good to finally meet you, Jake." The young man's hands trembled slightly as he shook Arthur's hand. "I didn't think you'd actually read my letter." "I read every word," Arthur said. "And I'm here because I believe in you." "We both do." Jake looked over at Melania, who nodded with an encouraging smile. "If you're ready to take that next step, we'd like to offer you a spot in the scholarship program," she said. Tears welled up in Jake's eyes. "Are you serious? This changes everything." Jake became one of the most promising students in the program. His hunger for learning and relentless work ethic quickly set him apart. Arthur took him under his wing, mentoring him personally. They spent countless hours at the Learning Center, working through history lessons, discussing life goals, and building Jake's confidence. For the first time in years, Jake dared to dream again. One afternoon, as they sat in the library poring over books, Jake paused and looked at Arthur. "Do you ever regret what happened in your life? Losing everything before you got it all back?" Arthur thought for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "There were times when I felt like giving up," he admitted. "But in hindsight, every challenge led me here. If none of that had happened, I wouldn't have met you or all the other incredible students. So no, I don't regret it. I'm grateful for the second chance." Jake nodded, absorbing every word. "I want to be like you one day, helping people get back on their feet." "You already are," Arthur said. "And trust me, your story is just beginning." Months passed, and Jake flourished under the program's guidance. With Arthur's mentorship and Melania's unwavering support, he earned his high school diploma and applied to several colleges. When he received his acceptance letter to a prestigious university, The first person he called was Arthur. "You did it, Jake," Arthur said, beaming with pride. "This is just the first of many doors that will open for you." "It wouldn't have happened without you," Jake replied. "You gave me hope when I didn't have any." Arthur chuckled softly. "It's funny, you said you wanted to be like me, but the truth is, you've already surpassed me." On the day of Jake's graduation, the auditorium was packed with friends, family, and mentors who had supported the students throughout their journeys. Arthur and Melania sat in the front row, their hearts swelling with pride as Jake walked across the stage to receive his diploma. The applause was deafening, but Jake's eyes found Arthur in the crowd, a knowing smile passing between them. After the ceremony, Jake ran over to them, holding his diploma high. "We did it," he exclaimed. "You did it," Arthur corrected him, his voice filled with emotion. "And this is just the beginning." Melania placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "We're so proud of you, Jake. The world is lucky to have you in it." Jake looked down for a moment, overwhelmed with gratitude. Then he looked up, his eyes filled with determination. "I'm going to give back, just like you taught me. I'll make sure no one feels invisible the way I once did." As the years rolled by, Jake's story became yet another beacon of hope in the growing Second Chance movement. He returned to the Learning Center often, mentoring new students just as Arthur had mentored him. His journey, like Arthur's, was a testament to the power of resilience and kindness. Arthur eventually retired from his official role at the Learning Center, but his presence remained a guiding force. Whenever a student felt lost or uncertain, they would often find him sitting on the same bench outside, ready with a kind word and a listening ear. Melania, too, continued her mission with renewed vigor. The Second Chance Scholarship had grown into a national initiative, transforming lives across the country. But for her, it was never about the scale. It was always about the individual stories, the moments of connection. The lives touched one act of kindness at a time. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Arthur sat on his favorite bench, watching the world go by. Melania joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "Still the best spot in the city?" Arthur said with a smile. "It always will be," Melania replied. They sat in comfortable silence, savoring the peaceful evening. Around them, life continued, students laughing, families strolling, the world moving forward. "Do you think we've done enough?" Arthur asked suddenly. Melania glanced at him, a serene smile on her face. "Enough? There's always more to do. But what we've done, it matters." Arthur nodded, his heart full. He had once felt forgotten, but now he was part of something far greater than himself, a legacy of hope and second chances that would live on long after he was gone. And in that moment, as the stars began to twinkle in the sky, he knew that it had all been worth it.